Hi, welcome to episode 7 of Collecting Disney. My name is Myatt Green. My daughter Judy is recording this for me tonight. And tonight's episode we're going to talk a little bit about the Disneyland Souvenir Guidebooks. The Souvenir Guidebooks were sold in Disneyland in the early days of the park. They stopped being sold there about 20 years ago or so. But they were sold in souvenir stands throughout the park. Walt especially wanted them at that souvenir stand near the entrance and exit of the park, so guests would take one home with them as they left. In fact, a funny story is told of the souvenir guidebooks. The merchandise managers weren't real happy with the guidebooks, and the reason why is because I guess it cost about 24 cents to print them back in the day, and Walt told them to sell them for 25 cents. Well, the merchandise managers were thinking, well, how are we going to make any profit on these when we're only selling them for a penny more than it costs us? And Walt, his thinking was that this was going to be a paid marketing thing for him. Basically, the customers were going to be paying for his marketing. They'd buy it, take it home with them, put it on their coffee table, and then their neighbors and friends would come over and see it, and it'd be a great conversation piece and get more people to want to go to Disneyland. So they didn't start off real good sometimes by the merchandising people. They didn't really care for them. But anyway, they're a great way to get a little historical context of Disneyland. I have them displayed in this little book here. And then I have each one of them labeled on top here. You can see the label right up here. And the way you can date some of these guidebooks, the early ones have the date actually on the bottom. So this one here says copyright 1955. Now this is a special one because this is the pre-opening guidebook. This was printed before they had any pictures of Disneyland because it hadn't opened yet. So you can see there's no pictures or illustrations. These are the concepts of what they thought they were going to look like. So this one is the only one that has that sort of thing in it. The way the guidebooks work, until 1968, they all start with a welcome to Disneyland from Walt Disney. In fact, sometimes they're even called a word from Walt before he passed away. And then the guidebooks are organized by land or by area. So like Main Street, USA, then you have Adventureland, then you have Frontierland. Sometimes the orders of the land throughout the different guidebooks changes, but they're all pretty much organized by land. I won't show you every single guidebook because there are quite a few, but I do want to show you a couple of the interesting ones. This one here is the 1955 as well. And you can see here the copyright date is right there on the front. This is one they printed after they did have pictures of the park. So this is after the park had opened. And you can see here it has actual first year pictures of Disneyland. Pretty cool. Pretty historic. So that's the 1955 post-opening guidebook. Then we go to 1956, 57. Now the fun things about 56 and 57 is they actually, in the back of it, they have Disneyland data. Just some fun facts here. 40% of all Disneyland visitors are from out of state, including visitors from 63 foreign countries. 24 restaurants and refreshment stands in Disneyland are equipped to serve approximately 8,000 persons hourly. It has some fun stats there in the back of it. But again, throughout it you can see pictures by land: Frontierland, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, Main Street USA. So I'll put this one back. Now, a fun thing, starting in 1958, in the back, they have Dreaming. It talks a little about things to come. Some of these things never happened. For instance, here we have Liberty Street. Well, that never happened at Disneyland. Well, it did happen at Walt Disney World, but Adventures in Science sounds a little bit like the Adventures to Inner Space that ended up happening there. Undersea Voyage, that's of course a submarine voyage. And then the Haunted House, they call it, became the Haunted Mansion about 10 years later. And then at the end of the guidebooks, they have something on the Disneyland Hotel. A lot of the older ones in the 60s and late 50s like this one. But again, you can see same sort of format with pictures from each of the different rides and lands. As we go through And again, this one, let me show you before I get too far ahead of me. This one still has the date on the front on the cover. And it wasn't until 1962 that things get a little bit tricky. So we have 59. Oh, this summer insert was pretty cool too right here. This is the 1959 summer insert that talks about the different attractions that were new for that summer. The new attractions, of course, were the Matterhorn, the Skyway, the submarine voyage. They had also add a little bit new things to the motorboat cruise, new Autopia freeways, monorail. This is kind of a cool little thing. It's not necessarily a guidebook, but it's just a little insert from 1959 that talks about some of the new attractions there. In 1960, the one thing I want to show you here is now there's no date on the cover that tells you when it was made, but it now comes to the inside. So copyright 1960 right there. And the reason I show you that, again, let me show you some of the other things. Again, here's the dreaming area. It talks about things to come. And again, more pictures. As you go through these guidebooks, you can see some of the new attractions that were added because the pictures show up in one guidebook that they weren't there the year before. They just made them. This one is actually special to me in 1962 because this is one that my mom went to grad night on. She wrote there on the front of it. But the reason I want to bring this one out too is because this is when it starts getting tricky. If you notice in here, the copyright date now is in Roman numerals, and they will be in Roman numerals from here on out. Just a little brief history on Roman numerals. M is 1000. C is going to be C is 100. L is 50. X is 10. V is 5. And I is 1. And you basically just add them all together to get the year. The only exception to that is if you have a smaller number that's before a bigger number, you would actually subtract it. So in this case, this is 1962. We have M, which is 1000. We have C, which is 100. Then we have another M, which is 1000. Well, this C is smaller than the M, so we have to subtract it from that M. So we have 1000. And there's 1000 minus 100, so that's 900. So 1000 plus 900 is 1900. L is 50, so 1950. X is 10, so add 10 to that, 1960. And II, 1962. And that's probably, a lot of you may know that, but as you're starting to collect these guidebooks, it's so important to know those Roman numerals because that's how you'll be able to tell what year they are as the covers start becoming the same. Here in the beginning, the covers are different. So 62 is yellow, 63, which I don't have, is red. But here's 64, you have 65. Now 68, there's a couple that have similar covers to 68 as well. 68 is the only one that I have with that cover. But now as we get to the 70s, look at this. 71 is the same as 72, the same as 73, same as 74, same as 75. Then we switch there, but the backs are different. If you look at the backs of these, over on this side, you have America on Parade there, you have America Sings there, Country Bear on a couple of them there. So again, the only way 72, 73, you'd be able to tell them apart is from the Roman numerals. Plus, there's a few different pictures, but for the most part, even the pictures stay the same in all of them. And then again, as we come to the 70s, you have 77, the later 70s. 78 are the same, 81 is the same. And the backs of these are all the same. So the Roman numerals inside, plus some of the knowing when the attractions were made. For instance, Space Mountain will show up in 81, but it wouldn't be there in some of the earlier ones. In fact, you can see it just being made in 77 right here on the back cover because that's when Space Mountain appeared. But as we move on, I don't have very many of the older ones because I focused my collection on the newer ones, but I do have a couple just to show you. This is what 89 looks like. 93 has the date on the cover again, fortunately. And 95 is difficult. You just kind of have to look inside to kind of figure out what it is because there's no date on the front of it. So you just have to look through it, and there's not even any Roman numerals on the inside of 95. So this one is really tricky. So You just kind of have to know by looking through and figuring out what attractions were there, what shows were going on, and try to figure out the dates of some of the newer ones, but like that, because there's no dates on the inside of them. Well, that's kind of a look at some of the Disneyland guidebooks. I hope you have liked this episode and found it entertaining and enjoyable, and you've learned something from it. If you have any more information that you'd love to share, please post it in the comments below. I'm always learning to learn more myself. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you for episode 8 next time. Good night.